Now, from approximately coast to coast, it's the Bob and Ray Radio Show. Okay, thanks, Paul. And we have so much material here today, I think we should get going with it. So many guests, I don't know.
They're all lined up, waiting to come in, as we call them.
The green room, I've never seen it filled, so with so many people.
And they're having a great time. They got a great feast out there in the green room. We'll tell you about it sometime.
And all their agents are have all the good chairs. You notice that?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, again today we have with us our consumer affairs expert, Hoyt Netley of Syracuse University. Mr. Netley, I believe, Netley, is that right? N-E-T?
Netley.
Netley. I believe you told us when you were here before that your work at Syracuse is not totally involved with consumer affairs.
Well, it's totally involved with consumer affairs to the extent that everyone is a consumer. Our dean of the medieval art department and his 3 full-time restoration experts are all consumers when you stop to think about it.
And those are the people you work with on a daily basis at the university, are they?
No, I haven't seen any of them in months. But you don't have to see a consumer every day to know that he's an ongoing consumer.
No, I suppose not. And you're making it obvious that you're still not ready to tell us exactly what you do up there at the university.
Well, it's not that I'm being secretive. It's just none of your business.
Okay. All right, well, let's move on into some of the consumer products that you brought with you today to evaluate for our listeners.
All right, well, I have one item here, Ray, that I certainly want to advise parents not to buy for their children. Now, you'll notice that the metal parts on this all have rounded corners, so the device looks as if it would be perfectly safe. But I found there's an engine underneath the seat here, and that can be quite dangerous in the hands of a small child.
Well, I don't know why you think parents would buy one of those for a small child, Mr. Netley. That's a full-size motorcycle.
Yes, it is. And the worst part is that the engine under the seat will activate the wheels, so you can imagine the trouble it might cause if parents saw this in a toy store and bought it.
Well, you didn't find this thing in a toy store, did you?
No, I found it in a Harley-Davidson showroom. And since your secretary told me to buy any consumer product I needed for the show and put it on my expense account, I picked this out to warn parents about.
Well, I'm sure you won't be able to collect from us on that. But we won't discuss it while we're on the air. What's next here?
Well, this is my shopper's bargain of the week, Ray. As you may know, most of the cleaning fluid that's sold to get spots out of clothing and upholstery costs about $2, $3 for a very small can. But I purchased a full gallon of this in bulk form for less than $1.20.
Well, that's certainly a bargain. But since it comes in bulk form and in an unmarked container, can you tell our listeners what to ask for when they go in to buy it?
I just asked for regular unleaded gasoline. I plan to put it in the motorcycle I demonstrated earlier. And when I spilled a little on my jacket, I noticed how nicely it cleaned off a grape juice stain. That's when I realized it also makes a good low-cost cleaning fluid.
But, of course, you have to take care not to use it around an open flame.
Well, maybe so. I never thought of using it around an open flame. I have electric lights where I live.
I see.
I think electricity's a wise purchase for any budget-minded consumer, but I didn't bring any of it with me today to demonstrate.
Well, we can save that for another time, then. Let's move along now to one final quick tip.
All right, here's an item on sale this week at a national chain of hardware and appliance stores. When I tell you that it was only $19.95, you'll appreciate what a bargain I got.
Well, I guess I might if I knew what it was.
Apparently you don't have a remote-controlled television set, Ray, so you're not aware that one of them costs about $50 more than a set without this remote control box.
Well, actually, I do have remote-controlled TV, but this tuner looks different than mine.
Well,
does it work all right?
I presume it does. I don't have a television set myself, but I'm convinced that this baby has the power to do the job.
Well, how can you know that if you don't have a TV?
Well, it makes my garage door go up and down, so that's proof enough for me.
And a bargain hunter certainly can't go wrong to buy one at a mere $19.95. So I want to thank you for sharing another valuable consumer tip with us. And I'm sure our listeners will be all looking forward to the next visit here from Mr. Hoyt Netley, the Bob and Ray Consumer Affairs Advisor. And now, once again, it's time to pick up some valuable hints for all you home handymen as we pay another of our regular visits to the basement workshop of Fred Falvey, the do-it-yourselfer. And Fred, I noticed on the way in that you have a new hammock out there on the porch. Is that another of your do-it-yourself projects?
Oh, yes, it is, Ray. The wife brought some new draperies for the living room last week, and I realized that one of the old ones would make a fine hammock. So I just attached ordinary household rope to either end with a number 6 stapling gun. The whole project was completed in one evening.
Well, I'm sure our beloved listeners will regard it as still another example of better living by doing it yourself. But just one thing, Fred. Why do you have the hammock strung between those 2 posts at the top of your front steps? I couldn't get past it, so I had to go around and come in the back door.
Yes, everybody has to go around to the back now, Ray, but that's only temporary. I've already planted some seedlings in the yard, and as soon as the trees get big enough to string a hammock between them, I can stop using those posts on the porch.
Well, that could take 20 years, couldn't it?
Oh, no, I selected Lombardy poplars because they're a fast-growing tree, and the nurseryman told me they'll be sturdy enough to support the hammock in 6 or 8 years at the most.
Well, I should have known you'd think of everything, Fred, and I'm sure the home handyman and our audience are all anxious now to hear about the do-it-yourself project that you'll be describing today.
Ray, the do-it-yourself project I want to describe to the home handyman today is a real money-saver. We all know how the price of books has gone up recently, but most do-it-yourselfers don't realize that they can print their own right in the basement workshop, and they don't even need to buy type or a printing press. Just a few pieces of scrap lumber and some simple tools will do nicely.
You know, that sounds like a wonderful project for our fond listeners, Fred, but how can you print a book using nothing but scrap lumber?
Well, it's really quite simple, Ray. Now, you can see I've started here on a pine board that measures about 5 by 7 inches. You'll notice I've copied the first page of a book very lightly in pencil on the board. A number 3 pencil is best for that.
I see the book you're using is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. Is that the only one you can use for this project?
No. You can print any book you want, Ray. Little Women just happens to be one of my favorites. So I began by copying the first page on this piece of wood. Then I took an ordinary number 9 chisel and began cutting very carefully around each of the printed letters.
And I suppose that's to elevate the lettering above the surface of the wood so you can make a printed impression of it later.
No, that's to lower the surface of the wood so the lettering will stand out above it. Then I can make a printed impression later.
I guess I didn't fully understand the principle of the thing.
Well, it's really quite simple, Ray. In fact, I've already finished chiseling away part of the excess wood on this board, and I can show you how it's possible to print a clear impression of what I have so far.
Oh, that's fine. I'd like to see how it comes out. And I suppose that's ordinary printer's ink you're now putting on the wood with that roller?
No, this is number 8 printer's ink, Ray. Ordinary ink's too thick to get clear down into the grain of the wood. Now, I'll just place an ordinary sheet of number 4 white paper over the lettering and pound on it with a ball-peen hammer to make the impression.
Gee, I'm anxious to see what you've got there as you peel off the paper. Looks like a T and an H and part of a C.
No, that last letter is going to be an E when I've chiseled out the center of it, Ray. You see, the first word in the preface to Little Women is "the."
I see. So you haven't quite finished chiseling out the first word yet, but when it's done, it'll just leave you the rest of this page and about, 400 more pages to do? How long do you think the whole project will take, Fred?
Well, I don't know, Ray. I've only been working on it for about a week so far, and I'm in no rush to finish. That's one reason I selected Little Women. It'll be as popular 50 years from now as it is today.
Yes, I'm sure it will, Fred. And copies of the book will make lovely gifts for all your friends whenever you finish printing it. So, once again, we've seen a typical example of better living by doing it yourself. Direct from the basement workshop of Fred Falvey, the do-it-yourselfer.
Friends, do you sit at home alone night after night, waiting in vain for the telephone to ring?
Do you sometimes call up the drugstore and order stuff you don't need just so you can enjoy a brief moment of companionship with the young squirt who comes over on his bicycle to deliver it?
Haven't you often wished that those in the mainstream of life would ask you to join their social groups so that you too could get out of the house and horse around?
Well, now that long-cherished dream can become a reality, neighbors. Not just once, but many times, thanks to the special introductory offer being made by the Bob and Ray Club of the Month Club.
It sounds incredible, but it's true, friends. Once you're enrolled as a member of the Bob and Ray Club of the Month Club, you'll receive all the credentials you need to join a new and different social group each and every month.
The doorway will be open for you to make hundreds of new friends around your own age, and perhaps even a few of other ages. And you'll be caught up in a mad whirl of gay activity as you shuttle from one club to another every 30 days.
Of course, we don't expect you to join the Bob and Ray Club of the Month Club on our say-so alone, so let us read to you from some of the unsolicited letters of appreciation that come pouring in.
A woman in Nebraska writes, I never realized how full and rich life could be until your wonderful club arranged for me to join the 6th Street Marauders. Now I experience the conviviality of a rumble almost every night, and if things go as I expect, I'll soon become the first 62-year-old woman ever sentenced to the juvenile detention home.
From a man in Pennsylvania, this heartfelt message. At first, I wondered whether I could fit in with the Make a Better World for Our Children Council. But after we all got to Washington to demonstrate against Senate Bill 1728, I felt just like one of the gang. And I can never thank you enough for the lasting friendships you enabled me to make on the picket line. P.S. What is Senate Bill 1728?
And finally, this letter from a woman in Michigan. She writes, I was just a stay-at-home wallflower until the club's July selection made me a full-fledged member of the Palm Beach Yachting Society. Of course, you neglected to send a yacht along with my membership card, but I still managed to place third in our annual race to Nassau, and was the only finisher in the top 10 to get there without a boat.
Now, naturally, you too will want to open the door to a whole new life by joining the Bob and Ray Club of the Month Club. So why not get your membership application into the mail now and take advantage of our special bonus offer?
If your request to join is postmarked before midnight tonight, you will receive, at no additional charge, all the credentials you need to become an active member of the University of Western Montana Alumni Association.
Know the fun of attending class reunions. And of course, unlike the other grads, you can pick any class that appeals to you since you never attended the college anyway.
But the annual reunion is just one of the benefits of Alumni Association membership, friends. You'll receive loads of mail from the college asking for donations. You'll be able to join the crowd as they hang the football coach in effigy. And last but far from least, you can get stewed to the eyeballs alongside the other grads at homecoming.
Now, regrettably, membership in the Bob and Ray Club of the Month Club must be limited to the first few thousand idiots we can hook, so apply now and avoid disappointment.
Just jot down the words, I want to be clubbed, on a postcard, and mail it to Bob and Ray, Togetherness, New York.
And now, return with us again to Garish Summit and its tangled web of intrigue among the socially prominent. There, in stately splendor, far removed from the squalid village below, they fight their petty battles over power and money. As our action resumes, wealthy Dowager Agatha Murchfield is hanging up the phone in the lavishly furnished drawing room as her spineless son Rodney enters. Agatha speaks.
Rodney, I've just received a disturbing phone call that's thrown me into a terrible quandary.
I'm sorry, Mother. I'll ring for the servants and have them bring a pitcher of lemonade.
My word, Rodney, this is a matter that requires thought. You can't solve every problem with lemonade.
I never considered that. It works for me.
Well, I've just been speaking with the police. They've found your fugitive brother Caldwell in Bolivia. But he can't be extradited to this country unless I sign the papers agreeing to press charges against him for stealing money from the family business.
Well, I don't see that as a problem, Mother. I have a spare pen if you can't find yours.
Rodney, I'm speaking of felony charges that could send your only brother to prison. Doesn't that mean anything to you?
Of course, Mother. Let me go get my best pen for you to sign the extradition papers. It's monogrammed and cost $125.
Well, I just don't know. You seem terribly anxious to see your brother put away. Maybe you're just upset with him for stealing your fiancée and trying to take away your job at Murchfield Ed.
Nonsense, Mother. I'm not anxious to see anything unfortunate happen to Caldwell. Did the police say when they'd be here with the papers? I don't see them coming up the driveway yet. Maybe you'd better call back to be sure they haven't forgotten.
Oh, Rodney, for heaven's sake, get away from that window. I just don't think you realize what all is involved here. But I can picture how the newspapers will relish getting their teeth into this story about our prominent and respected family.
Here's the clipping file you wanted on the Birchfield case, boss. And you were sure right about them. The old man was a robber baron who built his fortune by hiring lead miners for slave wages. Our readers are going to love it when the son gets sent away for a good long stretch.
Yeah, I'm bringing our top reporters home from all over the world to cover the story. But remember, he's innocent until proven guilty.
Oh,
So
sure.
Be objective.
Oh, sure, boss. I'll drag the old lady's name through the mud, too.
Good. Have you dug up any juicy stuff in Agatha Murchfield's early life that we can use to headline tomorrow's special section on the case?
I got the whole research staff working on that right now. We already know she went to an Easton girls' finishing school, so we're trying to connect her with the big croquet scandal of 1934. Several of the girls were expelled for kicking a ball through a wicket in the Long Island finals.
Okay, keep digging on that. I want to be ready for the presses to roll when Mother faces son in that dramatic courtroom scene.
Very well, Mrs. Murchfield. You understand this is only a preliminary hearing, but we need you to identify the low-down thief before an indictment can be voted.
Yes, I know there are procedures before you can throw my baby in stir and toss away the key.
Right, we'll make this as brief and painless for you as possible. Okay, drag the miserable scum in here.
Bring in Caldwell Murchfield. Step lively there.
Okay, ma'am. Here's his wallet bearing your son's ID, and here's $239,000 of your money we found in his pocket. So just tell the court, is this man your son Caldwell Murchfield?
Yes, but now that I've seen him, I'm convinced that he's the victim of a frame-up staged by some mysterious and evil outsider.
Will Caldwell miraculously escape the charges of grand theft that he seems certain to face? Will the police escape charges of false arrest that seem certain to be filed by Caldwell? And what about the charges of rigging a croquet game that were never pressed against Agatha? Join us next time when we'll hear the newspaper editor say,
Stop the presses! No, that's okay, never mind.
That's in the next exciting episode when we will once again return to Garish Summit. And that brings us around to another edition of the popular Bob and Ray Public Service feature, Your Forum for Fitness. During this segment, we pass on health tips to you listeners from some of the nation's top experts on dieting, weight control, and preventive medicine. Today's subject is proper exercise, and our guest is a man who's, well, he's become a legend in the field of physical fitness over the course of the past half-century, Horace Fecity. I hope I pronounced that right.
Yes, well, thanks for that glowing introduction. However...
excuse me, I might just add one thing first. Horace Fecity is 74 years old, but thanks to a daily program of jogging, swimming, and aerobics, you're obviously in wonderful condition for a man your age, sir.
Well, thanks again for those glowing words. However, I should point out that the background sheet you have there is for my father, Horace Fecity Sr. I'm 46 years old myself.
Oh, I see. Well, then you're not the same Horace Fecity.
Well, I'm the same one as myself. It's just that I'm Horace Fecity Jr., and, well, so often happens I'm just not as old as my father.
Well, of course. We booked your dad for the show today. Is he ill or anything?
Certainly not. He's never ill. I wouldn't want a rumor like that to get started. See, Dad suddenly had to fly out to Omaha today for the opening of the newest Horace Fecity Health Club, so he sent me to fill in since I'm familiar with all the fitness techniques and everything.
You maintain the same sort of rigorous program as your dad?
Well, with the exception of the 2 miles a day of swimming. I don't like it when water gets up my nose, so I skip that.
Well, you substitute some form of exercise that works out the same muscles?
No, I just sit and read the paper while Dad swims.
Okay, well, let's move on to the portion of the Fecity Fitness program that you do follow and would advocate for our listeners.
Well, the important thing to mention is that it doesn't take a lot of time or sore muscles to keep fit. For instance, my first exercise every morning is to bend over and touch my toes 10 times, just like this, to limber up. 1, 2, and 1, and 2.
Well, of course, when you do that at home, you're standing up.
I beg your pardon?
Well, you're sitting down now. Most anyone can touch their toes while they're sitting down. I assume you exercise standing up.
No, not as a rule. As I say, I do this thing the first thing in the morning I get out of bed. And I'm in bed at that time, see, lying in kind of a curled-up ball. So I just reach down, touch my toes 10 times before I get up.
Okay, so that's today's first exercise.
Right.
What's next?
Next, I put both hands on top of my head. Then, pretending that the top of my skull is about to blow off, I press down real hard.
I guess that's an isometric exercise to build the arm muscles.
Maybe, but I do it to keep the top of my skull from blowing off. I seem to have a lot of hangovers for some reason.
Well, even without your affliction, it would be a good exercise. Now, how about running?
What about it?
Well, do you advocate running every day as part of your fitness program?
That's overrated. Dad used to tell people to run 5 miles a day, but then he started opening his chain of health clubs, and he found it's expensive to build them, large enough to have a big running track inside. So that's not part of the program anymore.
Well, you mean you're now telling people that a basic exercise isn't needed just because you can't make any money out of it? Is that what you mean?
Why, now, wait a minute. I don't have to listen to questions like that from a flabby little weakling like you.
I'm sorry, it just slipped out. Sit down again.
I'm not going to sit down until I taught you a lesson, Buster. Nobody gets a smart mouth around Horace Feckety Jr.
Put your fist down. I'm not going to fight with you, so just... Mr. Feckety, did you hurt yourself?
No, just give me a hand. I twisted my weak ankle.
Yeah, it seemed to buckle just before you went down. Disappeared under the desk.
Yeah,
there.
too much physical activity does that. The doc says an overweight guy like me should always walk slow and tape up his ankles.
Well, it's another valuable bit of advice to pass along to our health-conscious listeners. So thanks for all the tips on training, and I hope our audience at home will be on hand again next time when we welcome another guest expert on your forum for fitness.
And now we're happy to report that Ralph Flinger Jr. has just walked into the studio. Ralph, I just put Jr. on there. Is that necessary?
No, it's all right, Ray.
Ralph's the amazing gentleman who's better known as Mr. I Know Where They Are. Was your father Ralph Flinger?
No.
No, that's why I thought
Junior.
that was Jr. was wrong. Ralph here has made a lifetime...
I'm Ralph Flinger Sr. My son is Ralph Flinger Jr.
I'm glad we cleared that up. He's made a lifetime career of keeping in touch with thousands of former celebrities who've dropped out of the spotlight. Ralph, the mail just keeps pouring in here from listeners who want, you to tell them what happened to their old-time favorites.
Well, it's wonderful to get response like that from the public, Ray.
Yeah.
I write 50 to 75 letters every day to different formerly famous people I keep track of. And I know it warms their hearts to read how your listeners still remember them.
Well, it seems that all of them have fans out there in Radioland, Ralph. This letter that came in this morning is typical of those we receive. It's from a woman in Oklahoma. She says that dance marathons were very popular during the Depression years in the part of the country where she grew up. And she remembers a brother and a sister team who walked off with most of the top prizes. Their names were Eddie and Sandra Pardee. And she wonders if you know whatever became of them.
Oh, goodness sakes alive. Eddie and Sandra Pardee. I certainly do know what became of them. Of course, Eddie and Sandra had to break up as a team after the dance marathon craze ended. There just wasn't any demand in show business for a couple that did the foxtrot together for as long as 6 or 7 weeks.
I can see where there wouldn't be. But did both of the parties make the grade as dancers once they split up and went their separate ways?
No, I'm sorry to say that neither one of them did too well. Actually, Sandra and Eddie weren't very talented dancers. They were just able to do it for a long time without stopping.
Well, I guess that's often the way. Where are they today?
Well, Sandra Pardee married into a very socially prominent family in San Francisco, and she's still quite active in the annual wine tasting events they have out there. Unfortunately, she doesn't see as much as she'd like to of Eddie these days. He lives on a houseboat in Hong Kong. I don't know why he went over there.
Well, even without that information, I think you've answered the lady's question. Now, I think we have time for just one more letter addressed to Mr. I Know Where They Are. It's from a woman in New Jersey, and she's wondering whatever became of a young heiress who vanished more than 40 years ago while her parents were engaged in a court fight over her custody. The girl's name was Debbie Wadlow. And the woman who wrote in wants to know if she was ever found.
Oh, my. I didn't know anyone would still remember the Debbie Wadlow case. She was spirited away right in the middle of her mother and father's court battle involving her custody. Each of the parents accused the other of taking the child, and the police couldn't find a trace of her.
Do you mean Debbie never turned up again?
Oh, yes. Almost 30 years after the police had closed the case, she wandered out of a wooded area just south of Lansing, Michigan. But neither one of her parents wanted custody of her then. She'd become a very unattractive middle-aged woman.
Well, that's an amazing story. Did Debbie explain where she'd been all those years?
No, but I have my suspicions.
I see. Well, at least it's good to know that Debbie is safe and sound. So thanks for stopping by to bring us up to date on her story, Ralph, and to answer the questions from our other listeners.
Not at all, Ray. I always enjoy reliving the past. Goodbye. Well, on that note, we're all going to pack up and leave with the hope you'll be with us for the next Bob and Ray show.
Today's program was filmed and will be on the first plane out of here for the Cannes Film Festival. All because it was developed and produced for the Radio Foundation by Larry Josephson.
Lars Hoel was associate producer. Lars tells us he has no particular hobbies at the moment.
Paul Tubman wove the musical tapestry for the program, and Al Schaefer the sound effects. Technical director was David Glasser. Engineering assistants were Marty Newman, Miles Smith, and Jay Newland.
Production assistance was provided by Bill O'Neill and Charles Whitson, and the program was recorded at Howard Schwartz Studios in New York. Howard was live.
Funding provided by a major grant from the National Endowment for the Arts.
And from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting through NPR's Satellite Program Development Fund and from public radio stations.
This is Ray Goulding reminding you to write if you get work.
Bob Elliott reminding you to hang by your thumbs.
For a free picture of Bob and Ray, send a stamped self-addressed envelope to Bob and Ray Picture, Box 5000 GPO, New York 10116. Again, send a stamped self-addressed envelope to Bob and Ray Picture, Box 5000 GPO, New York 10116. We regret that we cannot send a picture without a stamped self-addressed envelope. This program was independently produced by the Radio Foundation.